I 30F told on my husband 30M to his mother when he made a nasty comment during an argument. Now I feel a little guilty. Any advice? Been married 5 years. When we argue, I always fight above the belt. You could record me and show it to everyone and anyone. Yes, I get emotional, but I have integrity. My husband, on the other hand, will try to win an argument or make a point by saying horrific things. That he will leave me and our kids and move to Mexico so he doesn't have to pay child support. That he wants to have sex with other people. He implies that I'm stupid and lazy and that I use him as a gravy train. Obviously, when the argument is over, he takes it all back. And it's always, I'm so sorry, I won't do it again. It's just the way I was raised. But what he said to me this last time pushed me over the edge. So I texted his mother and told him what he said, verbatim. I prefer to sleep with 18-year-old blondes, but here I am staying with you. Do you want me to go find one? And asked her to talk to her son. His parents talked to him and now finally he's talking about how he needs to change his argument tactics and learn better communication skills. So, my plan worked? I do feel slightly guilty for semi-publicly shaming him. And I do feel like a tattletale, but apparently his parents never taught him how to fight fair and that some things are morally and socially wrong to say to your pregnant wife and mother of 2 other children. Am I being a tattletale? I feel guilty for pouring his foul words onto his mother/parents for them to deal with. I'm also in my 2nd trimester and I didn't want to, and didn't have the emotional energy to, deal with it alone. Husband, 30M, and I, 28F, opened our relationship and now everything is terrible. My husband and I have been married for 6 years, together for 8. My husband, I'll call him Eric, has always been a really intense person, but he's a good man. When we got together, I noticed he had a much higher sex drive than I did, but I would usually have sex with him when I wasn't in mood anyway because I love him. He's never vocalized any problems until somewhat recently. I should also mention, just before we got married we talked about having kids. I'm indifferent to kids, whereas he doesn't want them, so agreed not to have them. Over the last year, my sex drive has been almost non-existent. I've been checked by doctors, and they say nothing is wrong physically, but I should talk to a therapist, which I haven't done yet. I haven't even been able to just have sex with him, to have sex like I was doing. About 4 months ago he sat me down and we talked about all this, and he said he needs sex, which I told him I understood but I can't give that to him right now. We argued for a bit and he ended up sleeping on the couch. In the morning, he suggested we open the relationship. I was heartbroken. He explained that we either give this a try or end the relationship. So I agreed. We set boundaries. No bringing the person to our house ever. No talking about it. Always use protection and regularly get tested. He agreed to all of this. I was actually surprised how okay I was with this as the months moved along. Even when he'd text me that he's going to be late, or when he'd kiss me and tell me his plans that night, it almost felt like a burden was lifted from me. Well, yesterday, my husband sat me down again and said he's something really difficult to tell me. For the last couple of months, he's been seeing this one girl and she's pregnant. I think I dissociated a little, because I heard him talking, but couldn't understand the words he was saying. When I came back to reality, I asked if it was his, and is she keeping it? Yes and yes. And he plans on being in this child's life actively. I asked him who she was, and he told me. It's someone I know, not well, but I do know who she is. I'm utterly heartbroken. I haven't told family or friends yet. I asked him not to. I asked him if he wants a divorce. He didn't say no. He's basically leaving it up to me. So I guess my question is, do I cut my losses and move on or give this marriage another try? I posted an update if anyone wants to know how our conversation went. Update 1. We're getting a divorce. He came home yesterday afternoon and we had a long, very emotional talk. I asked him questions that I never asked when he told me she was pregnant. He admitted to not using protection. He says he never slept with her before we opened the relationship, but he did kiss her. He said she's the only one he slept with. He said the night before he gave me the open or divorce ultimate, when we argued about sex, was a last-ditch effort to get me to work on things. He admitted that he should have just asked for a divorce instead of asking to open the relationship. He also said I share some blame in this marriage falling apart, which I agree with. I asked him if he remembers if I was always like this. He said in the first 1 to 3 years of our relationship I was enthusiastic about having sex even if my sex drive was low. He admitted he hasn't been in love with me for a while, and he is in love with this other woman. I asked why he suddenly wants kids. He said he slowly changed his mind about kids over the years, but never said anything because our relationship has been so broken that it wouldn't have mattered. He thinks I didn't go to therapy because of my parents. They're very conservative and religious and believe if you pray hard enough God will give you the answer. And he thinks I subconsciously have an aversion to therapy because of them. I asked him if he hasn't been in love with me for a while, why not divorce me when he realized that? He told me he loves me, and he was in love with me once and he wanted to make his marriage work. When he kissed her he realized it was probably too late but said there was a part of him that didn't want to leave me. He never expected to fall in love with her. He asked me if I was still in love with him and I said I didn't know. He said that probably means no. We agreed a divorce is the best thing we can do for ourselves and each other. We also agreed to make the divorce as painless as possible. I want to sell the house. He agreed and said he'll move out in the meantime. He said whatever he doesn't take with him I can keep or sell. We didn't talk about alimony or anything. I'll let my lawyer and his lawyer deal with that. But I'm not sure I'm entitled to it since I work a decent job, and from what I've read, in my state that might be enough for a judge to say no. I feel pretty numb right now. I don't think I have the energy to cry anymore. I still haven't told anyone. He said he'll wait to tell people until we get lawyers involved because it's going to be a mess with family and friends once they find out. Anyway, that's all. He's gone and I'm laying in bed, still processing everything. Surprisingly, I don't hate him. I'm not mad. I made a promise to myself to contact a therapist on Monday, and I'm holding myself to that this time. I want to thank everyone for the advice, as harsh as some of it was. OOP on their future. I plan on looking into asexuality a bit more. Maybe I'll join the subreddit here and read through some posts and ask for advice there. About the alimony, I don't know. I might not seek it at all. The house we share will easily sell for at least $1 million, so half of that is more money than I know what to with. I'm just going to seek legal advice and go from there. Am I the asshole for leaving my husband after years of putting his friends and family above me, and finding out he might not even want our baby? Hi, Evan, not his real name, since I know you might see this. I know you'll probably say I'm overreacting, but by the time you read this, it's too late. I've already left and made arrangements with a lawyer. Context: I, 31F, married Evan, 34M, 5 years ago. We've been together for about 8 years. For the first couple of years, I honestly thought I'd hit the jackpot. He was attentive, thoughtful, and supportive, or so I thought. But as time went on, he slowly became more and more absent, putting his friends and family before me in every way possible. Background: Evan has this group of friends he's known since high school. They hang out constantly, and he's made it clear that they come first, even when it interferes with our life together. We'd have plans, and he'd cancel last minute because they needed him for some urgent video game session or to help out. I didn't think much of it at first, but it got to the point where I realized I was always taking a back seat. Then there's his mom, who's difficult, to put it lightly. She's never liked me, and Evan has never defended me or put up any boundaries. When she told me I wasn't good enough for her son at our engagement party, he laughed it off. At our wedding, she accidentally got into a fight with me over a small detail about our ceremony and has constantly undermined me since then. The final straw: I'm currently 6 months pregnant with our first child. Recently, Evan sat me down to tell me he's not sure he's ready for the responsibility of a baby. When I told him it was a little late for second thoughts, he got defensive, saying he wasn't convinced this was the right time and that I was putting too much pressure on him. He mentioned he'd talked it over with his friends, and they all agreed he was just being honest. That's when I realized that in his mind, their opinion mattered more than his family, more than us. The last straw came a week ago. I had a small health scare, and he didn't even show up because he was busy with his friends. That night, I realized I couldn't rely on him, and I didn't want my child growing up in an environment where their father wasn't present and prioritized everyone else over them. So, I packed my bags and left. I'm staying with a friend for now, and I've made arrangements to file for divorce. I'm ready to build a life on my own for me and my baby, even if it hurts like hell. My mom, 70F, constantly tells me, 32F, that my daughter, 5F, is going to become obese. She's actually underweight. So, like it says in the title, I have a daughter, Leah, who is 5. She's strong and healthy, but slightly underweight for her height. She's been this way since she was a toddler. She seems to take after her dad, who is also very tall and thin. Leah eats plenty of healthy food and gets lots of activity, and we see her pediatrician regularly. He has told us that her weight is not an issue as long as she continues to eat well. The problem is my mother, who is convinced my daughter is going to become obese. While I serve healthy food most of the time, I do occasionally let my daughter have McDonald's for lunch or ice cream after dinner. Every time I do this when my mother is around, she makes dire comments about how Leah is going to get fat. If Leah mentions she had a hot dog for dinner, my mom says something about the childhood obesity epidemic. If she sees me giving Leah a cookie, she shakes her head and says something about how Leah seems to be packing on the pounds. To her credit, she never says these things in front of Leah, but around me, she never stops. The thing is, I am overweight and have been since I was a kid. Not obese, but definitely heavier than I should be. Although there are a lot of reasons for this and I know that the responsibility for my health is ultimately mine alone, I think my mother's unhealthy attitudes toward food have played a large part in my weight problems. She would tell me I was disgusting and needed to lose weight, then turn around and give me a cupcake if I had a bad day at school. Food was the enemy, but also my main source of consolation. This led to me becoming an emotional eater, a problem I still struggle with today. I have gone to therapy and made major changes in my lifestyle to become a good role model for my daughter, and I am losing my excess weight. I talk regularly with Leah about nutrition and exercise, but I refuse to place the same value judgments on food and weight that my mother did. I have told my mother, repeatedly, that Leah is healthy and happy and is not in danger of becoming obese, and that I want her to stop making comments, but she can't seem to help herself. I have warned her that if she starts making them in front of Leah that I will cut her off in a heartbeat. But Leah loves her grandma, and I would hate to end their relationship over something that is really only bothering me. Can anyone think of a way to get my mom to lay off? Update. Okay, you've all convinced me that I need to put my foot down with my mom and tell her that her comments need to stop entirely, or she won't see me and Leah anymore. I'm supposed to see her tomorrow, so I'll post an update after. Thanks Reddit, I really needed to be smacked in the face with reality. And you did it in an admirably gentle way. Smiley face, TLDR. My mom constantly tells me my perfectly healthy daughter is going to become obese. I'm sick of hearing it, but don't know how to get her to stop. Update. Thanks for all the responses you gave me on my first post. I think I needed a dose of reality, and that's what I got. After reading all the comments, I realized I needed to talk to my mom. So when she came over, before she had a chance to say anything about Leah's eating habits, I took her aside and said, enough. Leah is healthy and happy, and your weight comments are inappropriate. They stress me out and they're bad for Leah. If you keep making them, we're just not going to see you anymore. She sputtered a bit, but ultimately agreed to my terms. I was hopeful that maybe she would actually stop making the comments so we could have a somewhat normal relationship, and she could continue to see Leah. Hahaha. I work a part-time schedule of 2 days per week and every other weekend. This was my working weekend, so my husband was home with Leah. When I got home after work on Sunday, I could tell something was up. Leah was already in bed, and my husband looked really tense. He's usually a pretty laid-back guy, so this was weird. When I asked what was up, he said we needed to talk about my mother. I had told him that I had spoken with her and that she had been warned not to make any more comments about Leah's weight. Well, apparently she just couldn't do it, because she called him, knowing I was at work that day, and told him that I was blind to Leah's problem and that he needed to get involved because I had confided in her that Leah's pediatrician told me she was at serious risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes, and that we needed to change her diet so she would lose weight. What? For the record, Leah's pediatrician has never said anything like that. In fact, as I mentioned in my last post, he has told me that she is underweight. Fortunately, my husband A attends all Leah's doctor appointments and B has the sense to realize that a rail-thin child isn't edging toward obesity, so he knew it was bunk. He told my mom that she wasn't to call again until she heard from me. Well, I was livid. It was like after years and years of weight-related crap from my mom, something finally snapped. I called her, and the minute she said hello, I just lit into her. I told her that based on her behavior she was either delusional or a manipulative sociopath, and that either way she wasn't allowed around me or my kid again. I told her she was not welcome to call, email, come over, or send cards. Basically, we were going to pretend like she didn't exist. I hung up before she had a chance to get a word in edgewise. She called 15 times that night. I finally blocked her number on my cell and my husband's. We don't have a landline, so this means she can't call us at all. I had 3 emails in my inbox the next morning, which I deleted without reading before blocking her email address as well. Finally, we had given her a key to our house for emergency purposes, so first thing yesterday, I had the locks changed, then took Leah out for the day. Lo and behold, when we came home, my neighbor said that my mom, she recognizes her because she used to come over a lot, had been banging on the door for almost half an hour earlier that day before storming off in a huff. I can only imagine how angry she was when she realized her key didn't work anymore. I feel better than I have in years, which makes me think I did the right thing. The only thing I'm still struggling with is how to break the news to Leah. She really does love grandma. My husband and I are going to sit down with her tonight, so I guess I have until then to figure out what to say. TLDR, confronted mom, who was even crazier than I expected.